So the FBI, the president knew about these classified documents well before the midterms and said nothing until now. Joseph Robinette Biden, president of the United States, leader of the free world, holder of the nuclear codes, and hypocritical liar, pathological liar. It's time to return the favors, GOP-led House. Let's get to it, shall we? All right, now here to join us is journalist and host of the Megyn Kelly Show. Megyn Kelly, also my good friend. Megyn, can I do that? Can I say we're also very good friends for a very long time? I wanted to make sure we got you on this show because this is huge. This is unbelievable. For how many months did we hear Donald Trump can never run for president? Donald Trump is disqualified from the human race because he had those documents at Mar-a-Lago. And remember, the whole FBI spread them out so nicely. And now we find out Joe Biden may have the same exact situation on his end. What are your thoughts on this? Legally and then, other after.
Of course, it's no accident that they waited to announce it until after the midterms, right? They were fine announcing it about Donald Trump 90 days before, but this was too close and they needed to protect Joe Biden, so they didn't. And they also needed to give him and the Justice Department time to set up cover to make it look like, oh, we're treating both matters exactly the same. We looked at the DOJ. The DOJ has set up a process. We're trying to figure out whether any laws were broken. So trust us, there's no special treatment for Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, which nobody believes. I mean, this is going to go nowhere, this probe into Joe Biden. Forget the Department of Justice policy that they don't indict sitting presidents. Even if they didn't have that policy, and it's not a law, they wouldn't be doing it here because this is truly only happening so that they can give sort of the color of authority to what they're already doing to Trump. And over there, indictment looked pretty much like a foregone conclusion against Donald Trump. And I will say, look, the circumstances are not the same. Trump definitely tried to avoid turning over the boxes and it wasn't cooperating to the extent they required of him in returning these documents, whereas Joe Biden turned them in once they were brought to his attention, according to his lawyers. However, let's go back a step further. I'd love to talk to the guy at the National Archives. Why didn't you figure out that these documents were missing? You know how aggressive he was in tracking down the Donald Trump documents? Where was your thorough search after the Obama-Biden team left the White House to figure out what's missing? I'm not sure I have everything. Let me stick a team of dogs on the former president and vice president, make sure that I have everything I'm entitled to as the archivist. Oh, whoops, it slipped his attention, I guess. And Joe Biden's been sitting with these things unsecured in a facility that we understand, not the facility itself, but the University of Pennsylvania has received some $54 million from China after they partnered with Joe Biden on this facility and this think tank, right? So it stinks to high heaven. They weren't secured. China's got an interest in this whole thing. Why else would they pay $54 million to the university after it established this and its close ties with Joe Biden? And, not to mention what they've been doing with Hunter Biden. So there's two things here. There's probably not political jeopardy, but it looks bad. There's absolutely PR jeopardy and political jeopardy for Joe Biden.
Do we know? Well, I'm not sure we know that yet, Megyn. Like, some of the things that I was reading, that some of the documents had to do with Ukraine, some of the documents had to do with Iran. Again, this was when Joe Biden was vice president. So many tentacles to kind of tackle right here. Let's start with, there's some that would say a president, a former president or a president has the ability to declassify documents, whereas a vice president doesn't. There's that. But then if these are classified documents, I mean, we don't know what else could be in there. And you point out China. So let's go with these one at a time. So can the former President Trump declassify documents where the former Vice President Biden cannot?
Yes, that's correct. And just to correct what I said before, what I meant to say was, I don't think that Biden will be in legal jeopardy, but I do think political jeopardy is coming his way. But yeah, no, President Trump could declassify anything he wanted and says he did. Joe Biden's already admitted he didn't declassify these documents. It's his lawyers saying that they were indeed classified, even top secret, even with the most sensitive information in them. So Joe Biden's sitting there saying, I have no idea what's in them. That's what my lawyers say. So he's not going to be able to wiggle out of this by saying that they weren't protected or that he was allowed to have them. He wasn't. And he's spent the past 6 months, along with the press and the Democrats, telling us what an egregious offense that is. You remember the 60 Minutes soundbite? Totally irresponsible. What could possibly be in there? What kind of sources and methods might he have disclosed? Well, I mean, let's go full bore on this. Let's say you're China, you donate 54 million to the University of Pennsylvania because they established this think tank, and you want to make nice with the Bidens. He's former vice president. He might run for president. What's to stop you from saying, and now here's a nice little intern that we would just love it if that person worked in the Biden think tank. He's just such a Biden fan, and they don't disclose that this person's from China or working for them. How do we know that the Chinese haven't already seen what's in there? Unlike Mar-a-Lago, where the best we have is supposition that Trump had somebody visiting him at Mar-a-Lago and they knew to sneak off into some closet somewhere.
Right. Where it, the cameras rolling. First of all, when they raided Mar-a-Lago in the cover of darkness, and they came in guns a-blazing, and they had hundreds of agents coming. They already had Secret Service inside Mar-a-Lago at the time. They're protecting the president, former president, and his family, or the former president at least. So they didn't really need to do that, but it sure was a show of force, and they really, it was amazing for all the cameras, and the FBI looked great doing it, didn't they? But where's this? This happened prior to the midterm elections. This happened 3 months ago, and there was no fanfare. There was no media coverage.
Right. They sat on it. And all of this is so bad. It's so bad for them because it plays into a narrative that already exists for good reason amongst most Republicans, which is that there are two systems of justice, that the FBI has been turned into a partisan operation, and that Merrick Garland, as opposed to representing all of us, really is just sort of White House counsel adjunct, over there at the DOJ, and that he's working with the president to push his political agenda on us, as opposed to just looking out for the country's best interests and law enforcement interests. And so I don't believe Biden will be charged, as I said. And I do believe President Trump was on the precipice of being charged. I think this, makes it a little less likely because politically it's harder to explain. But I really think this is going to hurt Joe Biden politically. And so he may interfere in the prosecution of Trump and try to stop it.
Let's talk about that. You want me, this is my crazy, people call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't know if that's a bad thing. Sometimes it turns out all my conspiracy theories tend to come out. But what if, and I think this is what actually happened, what if the powers that be on the Democrat side, the big money, the big people with influence, have realized that Joe Biden can't win in 2024. He's aging. He's becoming, more and more involved. His dementia's getting worse. And maybe they just waited till now and say, you know what? He's out of the country. Let's leak this stuff now. It's time to leak this stuff and push away from a 2024 Joe Biden presidency before he announces. What are your thoughts of that?
I don't think they're in that mood. I think that's a Republican talking. The Democrats like him. They're feeling bullish about Joe Biden right now. You saw the article in The Hill saying yeah, go Team Biden. They're quoting all these Democrats saying he might announce as early as February around the State of the Union for a second term, saying, I've changed. I was against him before the midterms, but now the midterms proved to me he can do it. And let's face it, they don't want the alternative. They certainly don't want Kamala Harris. So they want Joe Biden to be at his most robust. I think they understand Gavin Newsom's got the same problems that you and I see. And Joe Biden has proven he can win, all right, depending on your position, and that he could do it again. So they I think, prefer to stick with the horse that's already in the White House and run it a second time. And I do think this is basically, I think Joe Biden's lawyers never, ever would have called attention to the fact they found this file with documents in it had the Justice Department not did what it did to Trump. Had they not done what they had already done to him.
So I take it there's no truth to this rumor that I've just been texted that the leaker who leaked the document situation for Biden's name was Kamala Harris. I guess that we won't go with that.
I think she knows very well they won't stand by her.
I adore having you on. Megyn Kelly, my good friend also. The Megyn Kelly host of the Megyn Kelly Show and podcast. Fantastic, folks. Make sure you grab it and watch it every single time she posts it. Thank you, Megyn.
Thanks for having me.